Amendment 1 of the United States Constitution states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Today I'm going to talk to you about how the editorial, The White House Puts the Bible Before the Hippocratic Oath, written by the New York Times editorial board on January 28, 2018, argues against the idea of religious freedom in the workplace. The editorial cites the case of Tamisha Means, a Michigan resident who was rushed to a hospital near her home, and because the hospital was a facility sponsored by a Catholic organization, physicians did not tell her that an abortion was Tamisha's safest choice for treatment. Tamisha was sent home, where she returned to the facility approximately 3 times, and she suffered labor pains for more than 48 hours. Tamisha eventually delivers her baby prematurely, and the baby only lives for a few hours before he or she expired. Although a compelling argument and a heart-wrenching depiction of events that most of us can empathize with, the fact remains that we live in a country where religious freedom is woven into the fabric of what we call American. In dispute of one of the author's subclaims, which states that in recent conflicts between patient needs and religious freedoms, patients have too often lost, I would like to argue that of most important is not who's won or lost in this example, but that a dispute even exists between a patient's needs and the religious freedoms of a healthcare provider, particularly in a society where religious freedom is a constitutional right of any citizen. Ecclesiastical law is a set of ordinances and regulations made by ecclesiastical authority or church leadership for the government of a Christian organization or church and its members, and is recognized in the state of Michigan. It protects healthcare providers that desire to operate under Christian practices as it relates to the treatment of patients. In the case of Tamisha Means, the opinions of the justices presiding over the trial ruled in favor of the defendants, citing ecclesiastical law. It was Tamisha's choice on what facility to use for her reproductive needs, and ultimately the responsibility is on the patient to know and be informed about where they're choosing to receive the treatment. I would argue that the medical facility operated within the regulations of the governing principles and guidelines for not only that organization, but also under the rights that are afforded to them under the United States Constitution as well. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said previously that it will create a division within its civil rights to give it the focus it needs to more vigorously and effectively enforce existing laws protecting the rights of conscious and religious freedom. Thanks to one of the only good acts of faith shown by this current administration, healthcare professionals are given the stretching room that they need to exercise the religious freedom afforded to them by Amendment 1 of the United States Constitution. Healthcare providers should have the right to refuse care for treatments that they deem morally questionable. Rarely does society or the justice system get involved in funding the education or supporting the successful completion of healthcare and educational programs for providers. However, they selectively choose to get involved when a battle exists against the religious rights of the healthcare provider. In conclusion, there are many cases like Tamisha's, gut-wrenching and thought-provoking discussions on whether a healthcare provider is a public servant or a private contributor just aiming to make a living in the profession that they love. Legislative involvement only seems to arise and comes into question when the personal beliefs of a healthcare provider or a healthcare worker are put on trial should they refuse to participate in the treatments that they deem to be morally questionable. For now, the staples of our country remain intact, and although religious freedom continues to be challenged, the Constitution and ecclesiastical laws still stand and protect those freedoms.